Welcome to Deep Dive Table Variables. From time to time, it's necessary to have Google Tag Manager make some decisions for you, at least following some basic logic. You can use table variables to do exactly that. There are different types of table variables, and you'll see exactly how to use each of them in this lesson. Let's take a look.
All right, it's time for another deep dive, this time into table variables. The lesson objectives for today, pretty simple. We're going to cover the lookup table, and we're going to cover the RegEx table variables. The journey so far, we just covered user ID tracking. We are now looking at table variables. Coming up, we've got JavaScript variables, then event variables after that, followed by a few others. But of course, right now, it's time to go into table variables. We're going to start with the age-old question of why. Why do you use table variables? Table variables, first let me show you where they are. Table variables in your Google Tag Manager are user-defined, so we're going to click on New, and they are right down here. So you see this lookup table, and you see RegEx table. What a table variable allows you to do is essentially kind of give Google Tag Manager a sort of AI, a sort of brain. And it's a kind of a if this, then that type of style. And I'll show you that in just a moment here. But essentially, that's what they do. So there is a lookup table and a RegEx table. They both do the same thing. They both have the same function, which is based upon one particular variable. I want you to go ahead and turn back with a certain value. So that's sort of why we would need these. And because really, again, it just comes down to helping manager think for itself a little bit, helping to automate. There are two of these, as you saw, lookup versus RegEx. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in and continue our journey here. Here's how they work. The lookup table itself, the very first thing you do, you define the input variable, and then you determine, okay, based on what that says, here's what I want you to return back as the actual value for this variable, for the lookup table variable. So let's go ahead and set that up. We're going to do one, let's say, I'm going to keep this kind of simple. Let's do this. So see where it says visitor login state, and it says logged dash in. Well, what if I didn't want it to say logged dash in? We're going to go into Tag Manager. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I'm going to pull in the visitor login state, which we know would be logged dash in. So logged dash in, right? Remember, that's what it looks like here, logged dash in. And if it equals logged in, I want to return with something that looks a little nicer. Let's say logged in user, or let's call it active user. Let's active user. Okay, so now we've got an active user. And then if there is no logged in, if it doesn't equal logged in, I'm going to set the default value to actually be inactive user. So if it equals logged in, and this is how the lookup table works, the lookup table, consider this like an exact match. So if the variable, in this case the input variable, which is our visitor login state, exactly matches logged in, I want you to return back with active user. Otherwise, set the default value to inactive user. So that should basically mean then it's going to return back as active user for this variable. So we're going to click on save, and we're going to name this. This is LT for lookup table. In this case, this is for our active user. I'm going to put it for there. And we will save that. Now watch what happens here. So I'm just going to refresh the screen, or refresh our preview mode, I should say. Then I'm going to refresh on this side. And we're just going to take a look at the variables, because at this point you understand how much you can do with variables. We're just going to talk about getting the variables in there. So at the page view event, I've gone through and we see that logged in visitor login state, or our data layer variable, does equal logged in. Now if we scroll down, remember the other one was look table, so LT, so alphabetically, LT now equals active user. Again, what can I do with that? Well, essentially I've changed the value, and I could come here if I wanted, and I could say, just simple, I could go into my Google Analytics settings variable, and instead of passing through the logged in state now, I could pass through the lookup table and say, okay, now give me the value of the lookup table state, which would be either logged in or not logged in, and do that. I'm not going to do that in this case, but I totally could. I could also pass it through to change other variables. For example, I might, let's do this. I might pass through one. We're going to pull in the RegEx table for this one. Let's say I have a URL variable, and we have the app ID of 1, 2, 3. Let's do customer avatar. So we set this up a little bit earlier where we had CA, customer avatar, and we're just going to say equals 1. Okay, so we're going to say equals 1. So if I do that, what I can do is I can go to Tag Manager, I'm going to go to Variables, and I'm going to set up a lookup table that helps me to translate this. So instead of before, we used our previous example for custom dimensions, we put in there like social or some other word. I'm just going to put in like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And what I can do is with a lookup table, I'll show you how to do this for the lookup table. With a lookup table, I can say if URL, in this case, URL, and then the CA, if it equals 1, return with social media. If it equals 2, let's say that was an e-commerce owner customer target. And then if it equals 3, maybe it was a marketing automator that we might have. Say marketing automator that I might set up, right, as a customer avatar. So however the different avatars are. So what happens, again, I'll save this. We'll do a little lookup table. This is going to be customer avatar. So we'll save that. Now watch what happens when I refresh. So I'm refreshing here and refreshing here. Actually, I'm going to put the CA variable in there because it's not there. Actually, let me show you just so we can prove the fact. So variables, I'm going to go look at the page view event here. At the variable, this LT, I'm doing this alphabetically. So my LT variable doesn't have anything. It's undefined. Why is it undefined? Because I did not set a default value, which is fine. And because my URL variable is undefined. That's why there was no actual URL variable in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do CA equals 1. Watch what happens now. CA equals 1. Pull this up. And we can see now in our LT customer social media. What if it equals 2? Glad you asked. Now that same variable, and again, this could be something I pass through as a custom dimension for some sort, or something in Google Analytics, it's e-commerce owner. So you can see how the lookup tables are really based on a value of another variable. It's a way of helping Tag Manager think for itself a little bit. It's pretty cool. Now, what's the difference between a lookup table and RegEx? Well, let's say I was using, so I'd say search, and we're going to say it equals search in this case. Just do that. So if it equals search, the lookup table is not going to work at all because we don't. We're not going to use it for numbers, so none of those match. I'm going to switch to a RegEx table here. The big difference is this one uses RegEx. It uses regular expressions. These are some. If you have not really messed with a whole lot, you will want to pick it up. I'm going to give you a fantastic guide so that you can do that. That makes it really a lot easier to learn RegEx. But RegEx is definitely something you're going to want to learn, period. Don't think about if, it's a matter of when you use RegEx here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, let's see if the URL, CA in this case, and if that has search or organic, and then the output equals search engine. Okay, again, just purely for example. So now what I'm doing is I'm giving it even more complexity. That's what RegEx tables are really good at. RegEx tables are beyond exact match, whereas the lookup table is exact match. That variable equals 12, or in this case, the variable equals search, it doesn't exactly match what the lookup table is looking for, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4. And because it doesn't match it, it's just not going to return anything. But RegEx, I'm telling it, well, if you find search or organic, then return back with search engine. And I'm not going to set a default value because I'm going to show you this. So we're going to say RegEx table, in this case, CA. And we're going to hit enter here. Watch. If I do search, you can see if I go to variables, page view, the RegEx table. So my lookup tables here, my RegEx tables are in R. Oh, what did I do? I forgot to refresh. We're going to have to refresh our previews. How did I know that, by the way? Because my variable wasn't there. That's how I knew. Because I knew alphabetically it should be in the R's, not there. So I know by default I'm looking at an old container. So again, refresh and then refresh with CA equals search. And this should be what I'm looking for now. So I go to my variable, and in this particular case, RT, there he goes, right there. There's my RegEx table, and it says search engine. If I switch this to organic, because I'm using regex, and that little or bar means either search or organic. And this is something, again, regex is something you'll pick up, but just know that you can do things like this. I have set it up so that it equals search engine, right? So now it's either search or organic. They both equal search engine. Pretty cool. So I'm going to bring that one back up so you can see it. Again, regular expression, this little vertical pipe right here, that means or in regex. A couple other things to note about regex: they are basically exact match, kind of by default. So we have that. So it's looking for search or organic. And if I type in instead, I'm going to refresh here. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back up. Variables, and let's take a look and see what we've got. So here, search engines, right? Like, how did that happen? Well, the reason that happened is because it found search, and that's it. This little ES that was at the end of it. So watch what I do here in ing, so searching, do the exact same thing. What it's doing is it's finding search, and it's just replacing the word search with search engine, and then it's adding the rest of the stuff on there. So you can see here, there's my RT, so search engine, and then ing, because that's what I have here, the ing. That gets put back on there. Now, that may or may not be what you want to do. So I'm going to show you kind of why that's happening. So if we go into it, so I've got search and organic. I'm going to go to advanced settings, and I'm going to say enable capture groups and replace functionality, uncheck that. And I'm going to say full matches only. I'm going to uncheck that. And then ignore case. I'm also going to uncheck that because in GTM, I really just love the idea that everything is case sensitive, and I'm going to keep it like that. So I'm going to go into these advanced settings, which again, by default, they're all checked, and they will be for you as well. So when you want to go into advanced settings and maybe uncheck these so that you have a little bit more usefulness out of it. Watch what happens when we do that. So when I do this, we're going to go back. I'm going to refresh here, and then we're going to refresh here. Pull up our variables, page view, and now we're getting search engine, because what it's doing is it's finding any pattern that happens to match, not just the full search, and it's not just replacing the capture group, just the part it was supposed to find. It's actually taking the entire thing and says, well, searching actually fits search, which is what I was looking for. What if I say organics? So if I do that instead of organic, remember it was looking for search or organic, the same thing should happen here. So if we go into variables, I go into my page view, and you can see in the variable itself equals search engine and not search engines. So again, if I wanted to be search engines, I can go back in here, and I can basically tell it, hey, you know what? Go ahead and enable capture groups and replace functionality, which basically means find organic, replace it with search engine. That's what that's going to do. We're going to click on save and refresh. And we're going to refresh. And remember, if this doesn't make sense to you because you don't know regex, that's okay. Regex is one of those skills you will eventually learn and get very, very comfortable with the more that you use this. So I'm going to come through here, and we can see search engines because it's taking organic and replacing it with the word search engine, and then it has the extra S at the end, and that's why it says search engines now. So again, that's just an example of how you can help Google Tag Manager think for itself. How's another way to use this? You might do something like, let's see, I'm going to go into our tag. I might say something like, go find the page host name, and the host name being this part right here. Okay, so if the host name is Google, well, I'm just going to keep this simple. So we'll say website.a.com. Then I want you to return back with UA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 5, 6. That works. And then we'll do another one if it's website B.com. I want you to return back with, let's say it was a different property. I was going to call this -9. So what happens here is this actual variable would return back with a different analytics account, and I would use this variable, this little regex table variable. You could also use a lookup table, but again, regex table is going to be the best and the most flexible. Are exact match, so be aware of that. So regex tables are probably what you're going to be willing to do. But in this case, I could set this up and then have a regex table say, okay, if the website A.com, then make sure it goes here to this Google account. If it's website B.com, have it go here to this Google Analytics account. You can do the same thing with Facebook and account pixels. So you can kind of flip these things around. Again, it's your way of helping Tag Manager to do this. This variable then that I would have, I'm just going to save this. No, we're not actually going to do that. But I could go to the analytics settings variable, and now I can say my analytics settings, instead of being this, could be this. Right? And then what will happen is this value, this is the regex table we just set up. If it's website A, it'll go to the one property. If it's website B, it'll go to the other property. And again, it's automated. So different things that you can do here as well. So again, I'm not going to make those changes because I don't think that's particularly useful for what we're trying to do. And I'm actually going to go back and make these changes as well. So we're going to say, let's see, the URL, in this case, CA, and if it was search or organic, and I'm going to say search engine because that's what we wanted. I could, of course, do more, right? If it was, Facebook or Twitter equals social media, right? You can do this over and over again. You can do lots and lots of these rows, but just make sure that you check out these advanced settings. Probably you won't need these checked, but not always. So always want to TBV, trust but verify. If you're getting a weird result that you weren't thinking that you were, it's probably that. So just be sure you check out the advanced settings. And again, the reason I mention that is because it's not there by default. They sort of just, they have these advanced settings, but you don't realize that they're already checked. So I definitely want to take a look at that there. And that's the regex table variables themselves. Again, you're going to need to play with both of these and get some experience. Lookup tables are exact match and exact match only. Regex tables allow you to use the power of regular expressions to give tag manager to think for itself. It's amazing. We use it all the time. You can use them with e-commerce to say, oh, if the product ID is number 1, then return back with this price. Or if the product ID is number 2, then return back with this product name. Like there's lots of things you can use this for. Anything where you're trying to, where you have an input variable, and then based on whatever the value of that variable is, you want to return back something else, right? Again, if this, then that type of setup, you want to use a table variable. So look up for exact match and regex for everything else. And of course, get used to regular expressions. So here we covered reg tables. Remember, pretty simple. They're just if this, then that. So if a input variable equals something, then return something else. Tables are exact match. Regex tables are not. And again, use the power, so make sure that you get those. Speaking of, you've got a few resources here. So Google's guide to user-defined variables in Google Tag Manager actually has all the different variables back there, including these, so you can get familiar with them. Simo has got an incredible post on regex tables. I would absolutely go through that one because it'll show you what's possible. And that's half the battle with these tools, just knowing that the thing is a thing. And once you know that the thing is a thing, you can actually do a lot more with Google Tag Manager in this case. And then finally, the Bounty's ebook for regular expressions. This is an incredible ebook. You can actually just go Google this. I'm not giving out anything that they don't give out for free. If you just search for this, it'll pop you up this PDF link in Google search. But definitely, if you're just starting out with regular expressions or otherwise known as regex, jump on this guide. It's free. It's amazing. Print it out, use it as a reference, and start picking up regular expressions because you will want to use these in both Tag Manager and Google Analytics for the most part. So that if you're doing any measurement at all, you will absolutely want to pick up. And now's the time because you've got regex tables to play with now. Your next steps, learn regex. You're going to need it eventually. So let's not put it off anymore. Grab that guide and have fun practicing with it. Practice using both table variable types. So the lookup, again, very, very simple because it's exact match. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles back there, but it's incredibly restrictive because it is exact match. Whatever's in the URL, or I should say the input variable, doesn't match what you've told it, then it's just going to return back undefined. Regex requires more skill, but really just around something you're going to need to know anyway, which is regular expressions. And it's a lot more flexible because of that. So regex is probably where you're going to end up being most of the time because of these regex tables give you just a whole lot more flexibility. And remember, when you're in the regex table, there's these hidden settings. They're in the advanced section. And in this case, even though you might expect that anything that's in a form that's already collapsed like that, it's not selected. These are all selected. So if you click in the advanced, you'll see they're already pre-selected for you, and you may not want those pre-selected if you're getting some odd results or some results that just aren't as useful for you. Of course, once we've got those done, we are ready to on.
There you have it. dive table variables. At that point, you should have a solid understanding of how you can use the various of table variables that are available to you in Google Tag Manager. Once you're ready, let's move on to deep dive JavaScript variables. See you there.